And we're going to move on to María José Rojas Cabrera. She's in the chat, there you go. Perfect. En español, perdón. Nació en Guatemala, pero vive en A Coruña desde 2019. Obtuvo en 2024 el grado en inglés, estudios lingüísticos y literarios por la Universidad de A Coruña. Actualmente está estudiando el máster interuniversitario en estudios ingleses avanzados y sus aplicaciones. Su trabajo de fin de grado, The Maori According to Catherine Mansfield, A Postcolonial Feminist Approach, fue reconocido con el segundo premio en el certamen de trabajos académicos con perspectiva de género Ángeles Alvariño, organizado por la Oficina de Igualdad de Género de la UDC. Sus intereses académicos incluyen literaturas modernistas, ficción especulativa de los siglos XX y XXI, literaturas de minorías étnicas de Norteamérica y estudios de género y feminismos. Y hoy nos ha venido The Role of Mythology and Tradition in African Futurism and Asian Futurism. Okay, so whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to the organizers of the event for all your hard work and for the opportunity to have some of your time today. So yes, good morning. Today I'll be talking about mythology and tradition in these two literary movements that I've been working with. This is a project that started with my master's dissertation, which is now finished. That introduction was a bit from a few months ago. And I intend to continue to research in this direction for a future PhD, which hopefully I'll be starting in the next academic year. So to begin with, these are some of the contents that I'll be covering today, starting with an introduction regarding my theoretical framework. Then I'll talk about alternative futurisms, which are these literary movements that I'm working with at the moment, starting with Afrofuturism and then going more into detail with African futurism and Asian futurism. And then I'll cover the three texts that I've selected to compare today. Ken Liu's Good Hunting, Larissa Lai's Salt Fish Girl, and Nnedi Okorafor's Binti. And then we'll go into a brief conclusion. So to begin with, this is a very visual overview of my theoretical framework. I'm focusing mostly on the critical movement known as Techno-Orientalism, which is a critical movement that focuses on the representation of Asian cultures and people in discussions regarding the future, discourses, regarding the future and the technology. So usually Asian people and Asian cultures are represented as hyper-technological or hypo-technological sometimes as well. So sometimes Asian people are shown as mechanized beings, emotionless or robotic. And so two of the works that I'm using as foundational text are the Melus volume published in 2008. It's a special volume titled Alien/Asian, edited by Stephen Hong Son, and with works by very influential authors within the movement, such as Betsy Huang and Lisa Nakamura. And also the book Techno-Orientalism, also edited by David S. Robb, Betsy Huang, and Greta New. And there's also a second volume of this book, actually, which just came out this year in July. So as you can see, this is a very recent movement that is still taking shape, it's still being formed. Then I also, my work is also influenced by authors and scholars who focus on the relationship between race and science fiction, such as Isaiah Lavender III, who shows this, edited this book, Black and Brown Planets, but also authors like Lisa Jacek and Julia Favi, who have shown how Afrofuturism and related movements transform the genre by centering Black and diasporic voices. So going into the movements, Afrofuturism, a very well-known movement, especially for figures like Octavia Butler. This is basically the foundational movement for many of the other alternative futurisms that come afterwards. So this is a genre within science fiction, or maybe even before science fiction, as some people consider. And what is important to me about this genre is how it focuses on discussions regarding race and ethnicity within science fiction. And there are many works and scholars who have covered this movement. But also it becomes, as I mentioned, sort of originator for other similar movements. So African futurism is actually a movement that is born from this, inspired by even. And it was proposed by Nnedi Okorafor, who is a writer but also a scholar. And Okorafor considers that African futurism is more directly rooted in African culture, history, mythology, and point of view, and then it branches into the Black diaspora. It does not privilege or center the West, as is the case with Afrofuturism. She considers Afrofuturism to be more focused on Western and diasporic communities. So she prefers to center back African cultures, African knowledge. And as Wally Talabe also considers, it encourages readers to engage with African traditions of thoughts, of science, philosophy, etc. So this is one of the movements that is born out of Afrofuturism, and there are many others that have clear projects, such as Chicana futurism and Latina futurism, indigenous futurism. But then we also have Asian futurism, which is the one that I've been focused on the most. However, Asian futurism is not as cohesive. It doesn't have such a clear project. But it actually is very diverse in its voices, in its intentions. But some of the commonalities that I have found, particularly in works by diasporic writers who write in English from North American countries, is a focus on transcultural and transnational encounters in their stories. And as an example, Ted Chiang's Stories of Your Life was adapted into the movie Arrival. If you're familiar with that movie, you can sense what type of topics we will see in Asian futurism. So it tells the story of an encounter between an alien species and different countries around the world, and how each react regarding politics and how to utilize this encounter for their own benefit. And so this is some works in Asian futurism. So now moving on to the text that I will be talking about today. Can Lose Good Hunting is a short story. Saltfish Girl is a novel, and Binti is a novella. So starting with Can Lose Good Hunting, this is a story that focuses on colonialism and resistance, and also on the hybridity of the colonized subject through an anti-colonial narrative. It is a hybrid text in all its dimensions. It experiments and subverts genre conventions in order to celebrate this hybridity and resistance of the colonized, while also resisting the historic sexualization of two important figures within Asian futurism, which are the Hulijing and the Asian female cyborg. So the Hulijing is a mythological shape-shifting spirit who can transform between a woman and a fox. And as Ken Liu comments on his blog while talking about this short story, the Hulijing has been written as a dangerous feminine creature who uses her sexuality to deprive men of their vitality and essence. And what he intends to do is to transform this creature and make her an intersectional representation of the colonized Asian woman, who undergoes a unique form of colonial oppression. So this is represented through the character of Yan, who is a Hulijing, who is cornered to go into sexual exploitation. So she's forced into a machinic body against her will. And she finds her liberation not by reverting the process, but actually by taking this hybridization into her own hands and creating a new machinic body, transforming it into a blend of human, animal, and machine. So this resolution celebrates the survival of the colonized subjects through the reappropriation and transformation of hybridity as a form of resistance. So through this dialogue between folklore and steampunk aesthetics, as Liu describes the story, Good Hunting reclaims this mythic side as a way to rethink technology. The second text, Larissa Lai's Saltfish Girl, blends together myth and science fiction as well. So it critiques Western modernity through this narrative. and focuses on themes of queer desire, hybridity, and transgenic bodies. The novel alternates between two perspectives of two different characters. The first one is Nuwa, who is a Chinese goddess who is said to have created human beings from clay, and also Miranda, who is a young Asian woman who lives in a corporate-controlled future. And as researcher Paul Lai notes, the novel structure creates a mythological future. So this is a hybrid narrative again that is both myth and history, but also science fiction. The novel's cyclical temporality disrupts the linear narratives of progress. So it questions how we usually see the future. And it also queers mythology and futurism. So Nuwa, the snake goddess, is reinterpreted as post-human, but also queer, as she experiences same-sex desire, but also humanized because both in her personality, because she's a deeply flawed character that's often petty and resentful, but also in her physical form because she is constantly reborn from different human women. And so in this way, she transcends time and experiences different centuries. So by merging this queer embodiment and with the mythological narrative, Lai resists some patriarchal and colonial narratives that separate reproduction from creation and nature from technology. And also in Selfish Girl, myth is not really a return to origin, but an act of rewriting the future. And Lai reclaims the mythic and the sensory as tools to critique capitalism, colonialism, and the myth of linear progress. And lastly, Nnedi Okorafor's Binti. This is a short novella. It was published in 2015. Before she came up with the concept of African futurism, but it now represents very well what she is trying to do with this movement. So this novella focuses on themes of migration and hybridity. And from the three texts is the more traditionally science fiction text, but it also blends myth, science, tradition, and identity. So this novella follows a young Himba woman who leaves her homeland to attend UMSA University, which is a prestigious intergalactic institution. And during her journey, she and her ship is attacked by an alien race, which are known as the Medus. But she becomes an interpreter and a mediator between these species and the ones that she is encountering in her new university. Even though she experienced racism in the process, she also encounters empowerment through this new role. So she goes through a process of hybridization to find this new role as well. So in Okorafor's Imagine Futures, there are often reconfigurations of African cosmologies, and particularly in Binti, the protagonist's use of ojise, which is a clay that Himba women traditionally apply to their skin and their hair. This ojise becomes a form for Binti, the protagonist, to transport her culture and her traditions across galaxies. And at the same time, it becomes a healing agent in the conflict between the Medus and the other species. So it's transformed from a cultural practice into a form of advanced biotechnology. Also, another important element here is how hair is discussed no longer as just a physical attribute, but as code, as a design, so a piece of technology as well. So different traditional elements or cultural elements are transformed into technology. And as mentioned before, Binti, the protagonist, undergoes this process of hybridity. So she merges with alien DNA, transforming her braids into tentacles. And through this process, she becomes a symbol of cultural adaptability and resilience. She becomes a mediator between different knowledges. So this novella, in the end, reclaims the future for Africa by transforming tradition and cultural practices into forms of living technology, negotiating migration, identity, and belonging in the process, and also celebrating African knowledge and wisdom. So in conclusion, alternative futurism's writers turn back to myth to imagine futures that decenter the West and reshape the future. Across these three works, we can see how mythology and tradition function as alternative technologies, modes of knowing that resist the linear, progress-driven logic of Western modernity. Okorafor, Lai, and Liu don't reject science or the future. They instead reimagine it through local cosmogonies and mythologies that privilege connection, embodiment, and reciprocity. In Good Hunting, Liu transforms the Hulijing into a critique of colonialism and gender. In Saltfish Girl, Lai turns Nuwa into a queer biopolitical figure that transcends time. And in Binti, Okorafor imagines African tradition as interstellar technology. And together, these narratives show how myths are used in alternative futurisms as key to decolonizing science fiction, allowing for narratives that decenter the West and imagine new futures in which the boundaries between East and West, human and non-human, and artificial and organic are redefined, blurred, and often erased. So this is a short selection of my works cited, and thank you very much for your attention and your time.